I did too, because it was raining. Otherwise,
Correct, Sam, correct. Dry is going to have more condensed flavor for serving size, right? Because you dried it, and when you dry things, they shrink up, and that flavor, drying it pulls the water out, but it doesn't pull all that yummy herbal flavor out. And so you're going to get more potent flavor out of dried than you would fresh. So if you use fresh, you usually try to double up the amount of herb. Especially when it comes to things like parsley or stuff, or at least when you measure, dice it up first. Parsley's pretty big leaves, right? And so if you measure the teaspoon you need of parsley, you're going to put like 2 leaves in it. So mince that up first, and then scoop out the amount that you need of the fresh. That brings me to this beautiful fresh rosemary we have, though. The kitchen has some awesome fresh rosemary. And rosemary is a pretty dense leaf herb, and it holds a lot of flavor regardless of being dried or not. So we're going to use some fresh herb. Plus, it gives you guys a little eye candy, and it lets me stall while the meat cooks. Doesn't that work? While I chop this up all nice. You guys use one of these at home? For everything. For everything. Life is easier to scoop everything, right? Your onion. So we're going to toss the rosemary in. We are using dried thyme in, as well as our dried parsley. I find that parsley is a pretty soft herb, so dried is kind of the way to go when it calls for dried. Fresh parsley is wonderful. I made fresh parsley pasta last night for my family. But if you want to get that flavor into your food, the dried is definitely going to be the way. It's going to be drowned out by everything else if you use the fresh. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm going to check our potatoes. My Irish friend did want me to make sure you know that they just call them spuds. When they're making mashed potatoes, they're spuds. He also wanted me to make sure you guys never, ever say St. Patty's Day. There's no T. You'll insult every Irish person here and in Ireland. It's with a D if you're going to say it. It's St. Paddy's Day, the D. So the lamb's got just a little bit of clump, and I like to have a really nice mince in here, so I'm just kind of breaking up these clumps right now. It's pretty much cooked. I'm going to put my salt and my pepper in. Our potatoes are also almost done, which is quite nice. I do like to put my herbs right near the end. I don't think the flavor needs to be like destroyed by overcooking it. And I don't know outside if you can smell it, but right now it smells pretty good. You guys all wish you had that Wonka vision, right? Remember that, where you could send the candy bar through and you could smell it, taste it. Okay, so that's going there. Now, this is something I was telling you, little tips and tricks I like to do that aren't on the recipe card. This is the tomato paste. Tomato paste is awesome. Why is tomato paste awesome? Anybody? What was that, Ralph? Condensed flavor is probably your number one thing you get from it. But did you know tomato paste will thicken a dish just like adding normal thickeners? If you ever want to have fun with some pasta and a pasta sauce, don't use tomato sauce. Add a little paste and a little bit of your pasta water. It'll thicken up gorgeous, and it's a light, silky tomato sauce on your pasta. But one of the things that I think makes tomato paste even better is if you let it caramelize a little bit. So when I add it to a dish, I let it have its own time, and I'm going to get it all broken up and spread all over the meat. And then I'm going to so it starts to release some of that extra flavor, and we get a little more richness out of our tomato paste than if we just dumped it in and moved on. Oh.
So the potatoes feel very soft when you push the fork in, or just dry?
So, mashed potatoes are a real tricky thing. Why?
They can go.
Because you all like them differently. Some of you like yours chunky, and some of you like them silky smooth, and some of you like them filled with extra butter and cream and richness and all that. Cook your potato to how you like your potato. If you make yourself a mashed potato you don't like and put it on your dish, you're always going to be like, it'll be all right, but these mashed potatoes really aren't like how I like them. Okay? I'm going to season them to the way we're going to season them today, but guess what? You can make your favorite mashed potato and put this on your shepherd's pie. It's going to be amazing. And you're not breaking any rules. So cook your potatoes to where you like. I like to be able to pierce my piece of potato, and it's even better if it just breaks. I don't want my potatoes dissolving. If your potato water starts to get too milky, because you boiled it so long they're literally falling apart, I'm not a big fan of that. It's a pretty wet potato. So these are just to that break apart stage. And I'm going to toss them in here and let those drain. And get them out of the way for a second as we keep going on with our pie here. All right, so can you hear that? That's some caramelization right there, okay? It's not hurting our onions. That's that tomato paste. It's bringing out really rich flavor. At this point, now I'm going to add my flour. Pretty sure the directions say add your tomato paste and flour. I do them separately. So this will be a little extra thickener, right? And like tomato paste, I also like to cook my flour for just a little bit. No different than making your roux. You want to cook that floury flavor out. This isn't a lot. It's a couple tablespoons, but flavor's flavor. And any good cook, chef, at-home wizard is going to tell you layering flavor on top of flavor is what makes your food delicious. So we're going to layer some flavor here. Now, I'm going to turn that down a smidge. We have our garlic. You know what works awesome? It's just a garlic press. You don't have to be a fancy schmancy garlic chopper. Garlic press works great for this. But again, it goes a lot faster than chopping, and I wouldn't have something to do while we were waiting for things to cook. So we're going to get a little bit of a light dice on there. We're going to toss our garlic in, and we're going to toss our Worcestershire in. A Worcester sauce. Now, believe it or not, even though it looks fancy and it's here for me all out in the front, when I cook, this is exactly how I cook. I get all of this ready. Cooking is so much easier, and I would have had my garlic and I would have had my rosemary done, so I can just focus on my dish. If you're busy doing something and you missed that oopsie or you didn't turn the heat down, then lo and behold, you just messed it up. And that's no fun. Okay, so that's got a nice little cook. Man, I don't know if you guys see it. See, it's getting all thick and everything's kind of sticking together. So from that point, I have my beef broth. This is the restaurant's really nice bouillon they use. It's a condensed bouillon that you just add to water. It's really rich and flavorful. You can use bouillon cubes. Traditional Ireland, they use the tiny little cubes a lot. At least the home cooks making their shepherd's pie would do that. Or just broth out of the carton that you get from the grocery store works well. So I'm going to add the broth in, and then I'm going to scrape around because we spent those extra couple minutes in time caramelizing. There's some good nuggets on the bottom of that pan, right? And we want to pick all those up. Not only do those nuggets help thicken, but that's flavor, right? That's no different than you making that turkey gravy with all the bits on the bottom of the turkey pan. And then from there, we add our corn. Now, it says frozen corn. I don't like frozen corn. I brought canned corn. Canned corn's firmer and sweeter than frozen corn. That being said, when you get yours today, don't be mad at the corn if you don't like it because it was frozen corn from the restaurant I got for me for that pre-made. But this one has that. And then just peas and carrots. Now, guess what? Yes, most shepherd's pie is going to be used in this way, canned or frozen, including a nice restaurant or a pub that you go to. But if you really would rather use fresh produce, you can. But if you're going to do carrots and corn, blanch them before you put it in. So you're going to cut them up the way you want them, toss them into a pot of boiling water. You don't need to shock them like you would your asparagus or your spinach or something that you're trying to keep green. But you want them to get a little soft before you put them in because the cook time and even bake time of the dish isn't quite going to be long enough to break those down and you're going to eat shepherd's pie with crunchy little bites. So using fresh is fine, but you're going to have to pre-cook those veggies a little bit before you add them in. Oh, now you guys are doing it right. So, what have we created now? We've created this beautiful shepherd's pie mix. It's so colorful with the green and the orange and the yellow of the corn. If you find along the way that it feels like it's just a little wet, right? There's a little more moisture than you wanted. Just let it simmer. Turn the heat down a little bit and let it simmer the moisture out to tighten it up, okay? And once you've done that, then you can top it and bake it. Will it be bad if you don't? No, it won't be bad. But like I said, the more moisture, it's going to get more bubbly. It's going to bubble over your potatoes. It's going to be glorious. It just won't be pretty. And that's okay, because if you're at home making this, then just eat and be happy eating. This is pretty tight, but I'm just going to let it get a little tighter while we talk about the potatoes. So, again, everybody has a favorite mashed potato. Who mashes their potatoes? Okay, you're a masher, all right? Who uses the hand beater? Okay? Who uses a food mill? That's a food mill, yes. So, today, I'm a masher, by the way, and I'm a hand masher. So I like to break it apart with muscles, and then I whip it with a whisk. And I pretend I'm going to get all of the little lumps out because I'm awesome, but I don't get all the lumps out. Never, ever, ever. This is a food mill. This is a larger food mill because I have a large family that eat more food than I can possibly ever cook. But these are really nice. What's cool about them is they break down. This particular one comes with different inserts, so you can mill things at different sizes. There's even a smaller whole one that I have, and then it has a kind of a flat bladed one, so you could even push cheeses and things through and get shapes out of that. But say that you don't need a food mill that big. I live with 2 people. I live with 1 person. Guess what? This is also a food mill or a ricer. You can ask at any place in Edmond and say the same thing. This one's really neat because it's just a plunger system. And you put your potato in there and you go, and it's like Play-Doh, right? Don't you remember the cool little Play-Doh thing that you push the spaghetti noodles out of? So these are a lot easier. They fit in the drawer. And if you're not needing to do a bunch of something, again, I catered a lot. So having to have a larger food mill. The restaurant has one 3 times the size. But back there, you're like, you want to use that? I was like, I'll bring mine. I don't need that. So we're going to use our food mill. This one is super easy, right? Now, notice one, we're outside, so I couldn't have done it anyway. But I have saved my potato water. I would have poured out a good 2 cups of potato water regardless if I was home and I was going to dump my potatoes into a strainer in the sink. I would have poured out some of the water or scooped out some of the water first. When you do your potatoes, don't overdo the amount of water. The water should be just over the top of your potatoes, and it should be cold. Don't start boiling your potatoes because you're speeding up the process by adding hot water. Cold water, and lots, unless you have a heart thing, I'll get you, but if you don't, you just like eating really good food, you should really salt your water well. Potatoes are probably the most boring thing out of the ground on the planet, but they make extremely good things, and they need to be flavor enhanced, so spices and things like that. So don't be afraid to salt the water, but what that does is it will cook your potatoes faster with less water and surface area to it. But it's also, look at this, right? That's kind of fun. And we're going to get our potatoes pushed through there that way. But that starchy water is just that. It's starchy water. So one thing I like to do is, half of you, or more than half of you know me, and I don't do lactose very well. So I don't do half and half or whipped cream in my mashed potatoes because my family would not like me very much if I ate them. A substitute using your butter and your spices and all that is regular milk that I can get lactose free really easy, but with some of my starch water. Your starch water is going to help make your potatoes nice and creamy. It's already salted and seasoned, and it's pretty much 0 calories. So if you wanted to make your mashed potatoes a little healthier, that's kind of the way to go. Also, the recipe says, X amount of potatoes. In my house, there can never be too many mashed potatoes. So I never make that size of batch mashed potatoes. My layer of mashed potatoes is much taller. It's one of the better parts. So it's a way to go ahead and use your recipe, but you can then turn around and use the starch water to substitute adding extra half and half or extra butter or anything like that. So we rice that all. And now you can see, hopefully, the potatoes are all nice and riced in there. They're nice and smooth. You will not have a lump in your mashed potato if you use a food mill ricer to do that, right? So from there, I'm going to now shut that off. It looks beautiful. This is the healthy part of the dish. This is calorie-free butter. If you believe it, it's true.
Yes.
Don't believe it. We're going to get that butter in there. I didn't even check to see that Chris measured the butter right. He did the butter, so hopefully that's that. Now, one thing you can do is you can put your potatoes back on low heat if you want. If, we set our potatoes aside, right? Because they were kind of done early while we were making this. And so if the potatoes don't quite have enough heat to melt that butter, if you just take it out of the fridge, go ahead and add it on. And we have garlic powder. Don't skimp on that. We have pepper. And we have salt. Now, I want to thank, well, that's who's not here. Where's Deb? That's who's missing. I want to thank my client Deb because she was going through the recipe and she says, Todd, what's with the egg yolk? And I said, what are you talking about? She says, it says egg yolk. And I said, no, look at there's no egg yolk. She goes, it says egg yolk. So I go back and I look at this recipe card they made you. And it says egg yolk. There's no egg yolk in this, guys. If you notice, it's not even on the ingredients list. So if you also look at their directions aren't on the potatoes, they're not my directions for the potatoes. This stuff gets given to me, to Paula and Allie, and then they have to send it to Central Services. because everything has to be uniform and the same amongst all trilogies. And then they do it and they send it. And Paul and I are like, that's beautiful. It looks great. And we looked at it as it's beautiful and great. I made the mistake of not reading through it because I assumed they would have copy pasted. And guess who that affected? It affected me and it affected your recipe card. Now, if you've ever made mashed potatoes with an egg yolk, it's done all the time. It beautifully richens the flavor of your mashed potatoes, and it is just the yolk, not a whole egg. And it really will do that. And so if you ever want to try and play around with that for a batch of potatoes this size, adding the egg yolk, yes, this is the half and half as well. So we put in everything so far but the cheese in. So we have our butter in, we have our garlic powder, our salt, and our pepper, and I just added the half and half. I was kind of letting that butter melt a little bit before I put the half and half in. Now, does it have to be half and half? No, it can be milk. It can be fat-free milk. It can be whipping cream. I don't know where you're going with it. You could like it super rich. Oh, guys, it smells so good. My son asked me last night, he's like, wait, so what? How's it work again? I said, well, we're making this one, and this one's going to be baked while I'm teaching. And then I'm going to finish one, and we're not going to spend the time waiting for it to bake because we have the other one. He goes, well, what are you doing with that one? Why do you ask? He goes, well, you can bring that home. Well, I probably could. We'll see. Isn't he, though? Yeah. All right, this is almost melted through here. The butter cubes are pretty much done, and it's just, look at that. Whoa, silky smooth and beautiful. Now here's your difference. This is your big flavor bang that they're not going to do necessarily in Ireland. This is your one non-Irish. If you wanted to stop and just be Irish right now, you would just put these potatoes on. We're going to put some fresh, grated parmesan reggiano into the potatoes. Not only does it bring that garlic and pepper out, it just adds this beautiful flavor to the dish once it's baked through. That kind of takes it to another level, and it makes those people you make it for go, what was in there? That was so good. Yeah, it's this parm. If you don't, if you love, do you guys all like Parmesan or Reggiano? Yep. There's a big difference, by the way. Don't go to the grocery store and buy Parmesan. Parmesan Reggiano is a whole other level of Parmesan. If you didn't know it, the best bang for your dollar is Costco.
Yes.
They sell a very large brick of Parmesan. Write it down. Parmesan will last you forever. It's not going to go moldy on you like your cheddar or your mozzarella stuff. I cut off what I need. I grate it fresh myself. I have one of those little restaurant ones. So when I'm making my home stuff, I just, actually, that's usually what the boys do. That's the only reason I have kids, guys. It's labor. It's purely child labor. But it'll last you until you're done using it. And you can do it forever. You make that house salad, and you're like, what do I want a little different today? A little bit of fresh parm right on top of that. You made pasta, a little bit of fresh parm right there. Don't buy the pre-shredded stuff. Don't buy the grated stuff. Just get yourself a brick. Even your old box grater, one of those sides is going to grate you your Parmesan to the size you want. You want to make Caesar salad? Use the big circles. Use that shaved box side. You want to use it where it's going to melt faster? Use the smaller hole grater. They all work great for that, but they are that Parmesan, and then they also do Romano there. And it's also super, super affordable. It's about a third of the price of what you pay for a brick this size at your regular grocery store. It's the one, it's probably the number one place in the grocery store that gouges us is that nice cheese. The artisan cheeses, they will really get you, charge you $20+ a pound. I think the Costco is like, what, $7 or $8 a pound? And it's usually about a pound brick. It's great. It's great. It's great. Great. So, beauty, oozy, gooey. right? At this point, you would normally want to let this cool just enough that it has set some. So when we start adding our potatoes here, it doesn't just like push out of the way and then your potatoes sinking inside, right? But we don't have to worry. But it's actually set up really nice. So we're gonna this out. Now, don't kid yourself. This is a bigger batch of potatoes than the recipe. Because that's just how you do it. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to spread it all around. Now at this point, guess what? It's ready for the oven. Ooh, it's not anything fancy one because I covered it, but here's our shepherd's pie. I put my potatoes on top. It's all lovely. You can see your mash. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now, how do we make it fancy? This is what I would do. I bake this off. Okay, we bake it off.
This is what your son's expecting.
Right? So this goes in a 400-degree oven for about 25 to 35 minutes. It's going to get all bubbly on the outside. It might even push up through the middle a little bit, depending on how you spread your potatoes. Then you're going to take that out. You're going to let it sit. Just let it sit. Don't rush it. Like, make this and let it sit on it. It's going to stay hot a long time. Let it sit for a good 20 minutes, up to 30. That's going to allow the gravy to start to cool just a little bit, and it's going to set back up underneath. And then you can serve from this point. You're at home, and you just work on this, and you're really excited about it. This is where you take that parmesan out, and you're going to grate a little bit of fresh on top. You're going to sprinkle a little bit of fresh parsley. And if you're really feeling robust because you got your mileage in today or whatever, then you might put
Is it available at the market?
Sure is. Yep, Fred Meyer, Safeway. I'm not sure about Costco, but I absolutely know Fred Meyer and Safeway carry it.
Another question related, is there any difference between cast aluminum or cast iron?
As long as it's, if you're going to put it in the oven, if it's oven safe, it just doesn't.
So it doesn't matter the temperature, whatever.
No, it'll cook fine too. Just like know your pans and what you like to put in the oven. You know, the cast iron holds the heat more than aluminum. And the only thing I'd be worried about with aluminum is I would check it about halfway through your cook time because that heat's gonna penetrate through a lot easier. And you don't want anything to start to burn or dry out. It just might cook faster for you, which is okay. But you don't want to pull it out in 30 minutes and have a charcoal briquette inside your oven.
You say it's a little easier to burn than the cast iron. You say the aluminum.
It's what about it?
It's easier. The heat is getting.
Well, aluminum's just thinner, and so heat doesn't conduct on the surface through it. It's going to pierce faster. through the aluminum pan.
Okay.
So, how many of you have already been over to Ireland? I know you have. So you guys all know, even though it's always on our menus here, on when it gets to St. Patrick's Day restaurants, or you go to an Irish pub, corned beef and cabbage is not Irish. It's not Irish. Don't believe it. You're not going to find it there. So when the immigrants came over to the States and they were poor, they were able to buy corned beef from the Jewish delis in those neighborhoods, and then they would cook it with the traditional foods they like cabbage and potato. So it was made by Irish people in the States, but they don't make it in Ireland. If they do, if you finally find it in a pub, you are in the most touristy pub in Ireland, and you should run away. Guinness stew, shepherd's pie, lamb shanks, bangers, that's all Irish and UK kind of stuff, not corned beef and cabbage. So you know. I was looking forward to it. I was raised thinking it myself, and on my first trip over, I was kicking the tables. I kept wondering, why can I find this on the menu everywhere we went? And then I got educated, which is always more important. And if you like Guinness beer, it always tastes better in Ireland, and it's not because you're in Ireland. Because Guinness beer in the States is made in Canada. No. Guinness sends them basically a bouillon cube of Guinness. And the Canadian breweries, they just opened one in the U.S., by the way, on the East Coast. But till recently, they would take that and they would infuse that bouillon cube of Guinness into a plain old blonde lager. And then it would turn it into Guinness. They would nitrogen it, and boom, you now have Guinness that you get to drink over here. And it tastes different. That is why it tastes different. I know it feels awesome to say you're on Irish soil, but it's not really because you're in Ireland. It's because the beer is different. It's not purely made from the ground up like it is in Ireland. The only other way you can get it that way is the African breweries also brew it purely ground up. But these satellite breweries use these concentrated tabs of it. Where are we at with? Are we ready? Oh, I was ready. I was stalling. I thought you guys were going to come out in a big old to-do and amazingness there. Yes? Broth and stock is whether it's the bones or the meat and the veg added to it. I don't remember. Stock is bone-based and broth is not. Doesn't matter. You really want to know what I use? Whatever's on sale. I buy the cartons, but it's what's on sale. So I use them both. Stock is always more expensive. It's a longer process to make it, so it's going to be more expensive. But every once in a while, they'll throw it on sale. I'll buy it. I'm a pretty busy dad, so can I make it? Have I made it? Absolutely. Just not something too much going on in the Dale household. Hi, Dad. Yeah. Deb here is the one that caught the egg yolk. She's our egg yolk savior. Well, bear with us a minute or two, and there should be some yum-yums coming out. Dun, 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 dun. You are allowed to drop that mask until your face, or one of you can go under the table and one of you above the table. That's easier. Did you daylight savings this? Oh, yeah. But you need to get the food. I've already made it. That's okay. I was back. And you guys are more than welcome to be honest.
Where did you buy this one?
What's that?
Where did you buy this one?
I made that one.
That's a Jewish television.
I like the Irish cloud down the face, you know.
The one that you're gonna open.
Got that right.
Is this, would this, if you made this up,
Good.
I can put it in two small.
And
casseroles.
freeze?
Just keep it freeze.
Absolutely.
Freeze before or after.
Either I would do it before. Because then you're going to have to reheat it anyways, right? So why not just freeze it as is and then use the reheat to do the extra cook? You know,
We'd never, what about the way you said, two people would never eat that much.
really? I bet Keegan and I could eat this much.
Yeah, that's a good.
She asked if it could be frozen, so if you wanted to split this recipe in half into two smaller casserole dishes and then freeze one, yes. Her second question was, should she bake it and then freeze it or freeze it after it's being made? Either is fine, but since you're going to bake it to reheat it, I personally just wouldn't bake it before. I would build it like this and freeze it. If everything's cooked, so you have it where you want it, freeze it, and then when you take it out for that dinner down the road, then you slap it back in the oven and bake it normal. And then you're not having to bake it multiple times.
That's why we're there all sitting and after the pan.
Yep.
I've never frozen mashed potatoes. Can you freeze them?
Yeah.
And the consistency is still pretty good.
It'll be good, especially because, remember, freezing wicks water out. But if it's covered, that water's not going to disappear. And when you bake, you can maybe bake it like the first 20 minutes covered. So it steams and pulls the moisture back into your food. Then I cover it for the last 10 to 20 minutes. So you get the browning on top. Yeah. But yes, you can freeze mashed potatoes.
This is the recipe that you usually make in the available.
Nope, that's mine.
Thank you. Yes. I think it's
Careful. Don't get me in trouble. That's all right.
You can go ahead and start over if you like.
Well, we have to recut everything, but you can have a lesson whenever you want. Are you bringing some on today? Oh, for mom. Because I didn't use sweet potatoes. That was made in my That was the other thing that used the paper container on the half and half. It didn't hold the half and half. Yeah. So it was all in the plastic bag. And I'm like, I use what I have at home. So that would be really good with the sweet potato mash too. Really good. If you do that whole thing, you use the sweet potato mash over it. Right. Everything, lactose-free stuff, sweet potato mash over it. Really, really good keeping up sweet potatoes and baking it with it and having it in the casserole. And totally versatile. I would. Especially if you get a mash. If you get like raw potatoes, like cubes, like I just said, I would probably do it first and then I want to see that for you guys. I have to. I'll take it with your individual I was probably going to like baking pan. So you're doing adding a hot butter and a hot butter and I probably walk it. You need to bake that for 30 minutes. Hey, that was another great question, guys. Asked if it could be put into like French onion or smaller ramekin cups for individual portions. Again, it's an awesome idea. Ali knows I was asking about that on Friday if we had them here because I was going to build you guys all individuals that way. We just don't have that here at the restaurant, and I don't have that many to throw to you either. So we did it as a casserole style. But yeah, you could definitely do it in those smaller cups and make individual portions that way. Really fun. And then you don't have to worry about plating. Yep.
Yeah, and like you say, if you have your potatoes all, you could get them fancy. You could do this, that little piping thing.
Yep. Use your pipe. All you cupcake people have plenty of fun tips you can pipe your potatoes on.
Do you think the ceramic will survive the baking? The ceramic bowl. I consider myself sort of.
If it's just a normal eating bowl, probably not. But they do make oven-safe ceramic bowls. But yeah, I would not put your normal, like, I wouldn't put these in the oven.
Okay.
Yeah. But they do make really pretty, like Renee said, French onion pots. And they're so versatile. You don't need you can never make French onion soup if you want, and you could use those for so many things. So they're great to have. You know, you don't need a ton. I mean, a nice dinner party of having just 6 in your house or whatever, or whatnot, big company.
This is delicious.
Yay, I'm glad you guys liked it. Kind of fun to have pie on Pie Day, but not the pie you're thinking of, right? We had shepherd's pie. Just remember, now you can correct all your neighbors. It's St. Paddy's with a D and no T. Don't put the T in there. St. Patrick's with a T, but St. Paddy's if you're cutting it down.
We're taking our corned beef back to Costco.
Don't take it back. I've made 2 briskets in the last 7 days already. This is my favorite time of year because they finally go on sale. And I've been cooking briskets all week long.
It's still good stuff.
It's delicious.
I think I won't serve it on. We'll do it the day after.
Do your shepherd's pie, a really good meal to do. And I was torn between the two, was to make an Irish or Guinness stew. As we chose shepherd's pie, but Irish stew, Guinness stew is very popular as well. And believe it or not, the Guinness tour, the actual Guinness factory in Dublin, makes a ridiculously good Guinness stew. They have a little cafeteria you can go through, and it's really, really, really good. Next month? Yes. I have not corned my own beef. No, I have not. I have bread on it. I have bread on it.
She mentioned the lamb pork, and she's really particular about whatever. So you'll have to.
We actually went back and forth with that, thinking about the people not now, but it was just like, no, let's make it traditional. Plus, it's just, yeah, right? I mean, lamb's back there.
So you'll have a pound on her next time you see her.
You guys, you absolutely made my Sunday. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. It's really fun to show another side of me and what I also love to do. So I do thank you. No one's kicking you out. You got time. 22 minutes. I personally want to thank you for coming in and joining me today to set the time by day. I appreciate it. enjoyed your class. That in the bag is what makes them want to do one sooner than later. So, and I enjoyed it. I'm not giving that up. Nice try. Just so you guys know, you don't get a cheesecake class and you don't get a carrot cake class. So those are still trade secrets.
They are for sale, don't worry.
They are for sale.
So where did you learn to cook on your own, or did you attend classes like this?
Multiple facets. So I had parents who both cooked in the house, and they were like good cooks. My dad was the breakfast guy. He made the best biscuits and gravy, and he always did the omelets. And my mom, I was raised on casseroles because that's what two working families did. We had lots of crock pots and lots of casseroles. That took me into the PBS fascination of Jeff Smith's Frugal Gourmet and Great Chefs of the West and Walk with Yam. Those are like old school PBS shows that other kids were watching, whatever, Silver Spoons and stuff, and I was watching cooking shows. And that took me, I worked for several restaurants in the kitchen as well, cooking and learning from chefs, from fine dining places in Bellevue. I actually opened the Ram on Ruston Way. I helped open that. I remember building tables like this before we even started working and getting that place going. And that led me into starting catering stuff. So I've done double-digit weddings, and as crazy as I did a Yukonuba dog show once for St. Bernard's. Not for the St. Bernard's, for the people there. But, and then most of you know I've had my own baking thing for almost 5 years, 4.5 years now as well. And then those who really, really know me know that eventually I will retire as your fitness guy, because my goal is to open my own pub and serve delicious things like this. Yeah. So Ashley and Ian walked out. It's not pizza. I'm going to touch that.
I'm going to warn you, you'll never see me in your fitness class, and I'll be here.
Hey, believe it or not, I'm 100% okay with that. I told Paula one of my favorite things, whether it's the baking classes I do or attending events like Oktoberfest, I get to meet so many residents. You don't even need to be out front, right? I'm back there in the gym or back in the class, so it's really hard for me to get to meet all the other residents that don't partake in those things. So I truly appreciate having you here.
We have food or wine in here.
You got both today, right?
Food, wine, exercise.
Yeah, the only one I don't like is the one with an H.
Yeah.
You got that, Etsy? We'll keep the H only in your name, Etsy.
Okay, how are you on your steps? I was going to say you look nice, but
Not now?
not now.
Well, next cooking class is chicken and waffles, so be ready.
Okay, I will.
Etsy never heard of chicken and waffles. You ever heard of chicken and waffles? Well, maybe I'll do that one. I already told Etsy she can come to the house for chicken and waffles.
Yeah, there's already chicken.
And that's why Etsy and I got the butt heads. So that's it. We've improved it. You can look up the studies. You just never heard of it.
Everyone. I thank you. I am so happy nobody else has never heard of it.
But you can't say that anymore because you've got 2 years of knowing about chicken and waffles.
Someone else can say, I've never heard of it. It took her 1.5 years to accept the fact that such a thing existed.
No, let alone that we can drive her to about like 6 places to chicken and waffles within 15 miles of us right now. But I told you even KFC was doing it for a long time. They started doing chicken and waffles in the fast food drive-thru.
What?
They were horrible, but they happened.
That's what he said.
No, they did. They did chicken and waffles. They made these little waffles, and then you got pieces of chicken. Like they did like chicken strips instead of like fried chicken. Their waffles were horrible. The chicken is fine. Delicious. That's a crowd favorite of mine. Well, and also if there's certain things, guys, I do. I love to cook, and so you can throw things at me, ideas that you'd like to see as well. whether it be Irish stew.
You need to do the Irish stew with the Guinness.
Yeah.
I would like to taste Guinness where, in an instant whereby, or with something that I thought would taste good. Otherwise, Guinness is.
But you need to have it at the source at some point, because it will change your thought. I'm convinced. Because
Is it still
on
bitter?
the old side, anywhere in Ireland, it's good, and it's okay in England, but it's not as good as it is in Ireland. It just doesn't travel well. Even the ones that are made.
And if you really want a game changer, again, maybe most popular in America. So Guinness is so popular that they fund half of Ireland. Like they throw money into that country like crazy. But I personally think there's another dark beer called Murphy's. It's made in Cork. That's
Totally.
way better than Guinness. It's I think Guinness is about the fourth best stout in Ireland, not the first. Yeah.
My first visit to Ireland was in the late 90s, and still at that time, and I haven't been back in a while, so I don't know, but you could drive anywhere in the country and see billboards advertising Guinness. And one of them was a picture of an obviously pregnant woman in the doctor's office sitting across the table from the doctor, and then Guinness is good for you. Because it was and may still be recommended for pregnant women. Iron content, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
That
Guinness
is amazing.
is so powerful in Ireland. Guinness created its own holiday in Ireland, and it's called Arthur's Day, and it's an actual recognized holiday. And it's based after Sir Arthur Guinness, and it's a massive celebration on par with St. Patrick's Day over there. And I've been there for both, and experienced both holidays. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm surprised at you.
But did you know I learned over in Ireland too? If you're not a huge fan of Guinness, you can ask the barkeep to put a drop of currant in it. It's concentrated currant syrup, and it changes the flavor profile of Guinness. Really tasty, sweet, and a little bit of fruitiness to it. Guinness is not bitter, especially not in Ireland. It is smooth. It's like good chocolate milk. Multiple times. Because I keep going back to people that haven't been, so I don't Yeah, they learn, just so you know, from the States. So Guinness, Ireland's so pure about their booze. Like they don't use cocktails. It's wine, it's whiskey, and it's beer, right? And they avoid that because there's the perfect pour, right? You can actually take a class on the Guinness tour to learn how to pour their beer correctly. And I will tell you, 99.9% of bars in America do not pour your nitrogen stuff correctly. And it ruins it, also changes the flavor with the quality of pour. But we're the ones that started doing coffee art, and then that turned into being able to do that with more of the dark beer as well. And then so Guinness was like, well, we're not going to let that one slide. We were just doing that too. And we started having the shamrock beer to their beers as well. I found out my last visit, like, young U.S. baristas go there and make a killing because coffee shops are just now really getting popular there, and they're not trained. So you can work at a local shop here and know that they'll pay you triple to live in Ireland and teach all the people there how to make coffee. It's a great way to have a little jump in life. Well, any final questions, guys? I know you got about 10 minutes of mingle if you want, but they do ask that we're out by 2:30 because there's another event in 3. So they got to get cleaned up and moved out on that.
Thank you, Todd.
You're very welcome. Yes, Sandy.
Yeah,
Yeah, where are they? She brought some. Oh, right here, right in front of my face. So welcome. Thank you. Larry, did you, thank you. Did you hear, that see you, during class?
I may not have.
So, on your type-in, on your video screen when you were taking class, you have capital L, small a, and then capital R-R-Y. So it's like 60 reading. It's not Larry taking class. It's I'm reading.
Every week I'm going to sit in their classes.
That makes me super happy.
Thank you.
You're so welcome, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Just happened to be at the before air show. Walked by and then they were real rude, and my son said, "Hey, look in the wall." And they went, "Where are you going to college?" Where are you going to college? And he said, "Daytona." And he goes, "Really?" And so what about coming to Prescott? Well, my mom and I were thinking about going down there. So we're okay, we stopped at anyway.
I actually